Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar Engaging Anatomy, How to Make the Most of the Table with Remote Teaching. I'm Vanessa from Anatomage, and I would like to introduce you Dr. Siobhan Moyes. But first, let me thank Siobhan for accepting our invitation and being here today to hold the first Key Opinion Leader webinar of the Anatomage Academy. Siobhan is the lead in anatomy and histology at the University of Plymouth in the UK. And thanks to the Anatomage table, she has developed innovative anatomy curricula focusing on surface anatomy, medical imaging, and virtual dissection without the use of real cadavers. We can say that the University of Plymouth has recently become one of the most important table users in Europe. They now have 8 Anatomage tables, 3 clinical tables and 1 classic table in the School of Medicine, and 4 other convertible tables distributed among the School of Health Professions and the School of Nursing and Midwifery. During the webinar, Siobhan will show us through some examples how it is possible to use the Anatomage table remotely. I hope that you can benefit from her experience and get ideas and suggestions on how to take advantage of our technologies, especially in these times of restrictions due to the pandemic. I kindly ask you to keep your microphones deactivated during the webinar. If you have issues or questions, please write them in the chat. At the end of Siobhan's presentation, there will be the question and answer session in which my colleague Carlo and I will pass the microphone to those who write the questions in the chat. So the chat can be used to book the possibility to speak. In this way, we can give you the opportunity to directly ask Siobhan questions using your microphone or share your experiences and ideas with all of us. Lastly, the webinar will be recorded and we will share the video with you within a few days. Now I'll give the floor to Siobhan.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. So I'm just going to share my screen, if that's okay. And can you just let me know if you can see that, please? Lovely. So as I always do when I'm doing any kind of remote teaching, and now I tell people that your lovely faces are on this screen because I have multiple screens, but my presentation is on this screen. So if I'm looking here, I'm not ignoring you, I'm just looking directly at your lovely faces. Welcome and thank you very much to Anatomage for inviting me to give this webinar. I hope that we can use this as an opportunity to share best practice, and if there's something that you'd like to discuss about what I've mentioned afterwards, then please let me know. So I'm based within the School of Medicine, Peninsula Medical School, and that's under the umbrella of the Faculty of Health, which contains all of the allied health professions that are available within the health service, except to pharmacy and therapeutic radiography. So we have an amazing scope of practice. What I'm talking about today is everything that we've done within the Peninsula Medical School, and that includes on the medical programs, the new diagnostic radiography program that I created, which is now in its 2nd year, and the postgraduate physician associate program. Now, with all of these programs, the curriculum is founded on EBL, so inquiry-based learning. So that runs as a course throughout every single one of these programs. And as such, we have a very integrated curriculum. So we don't have modules that are pure anatomy. We're always integrating them either through the life cycle within medicine or with other life sciences in physician associates and diagnostic radiography. And so that integrated approach means that we have to be a little bit more flexible in our delivery as well, and the timing of our deliveries. We have a spiral curriculum, as you may know. Spiral curriculum means that the students can't just learn a subject, take an exam in it, and then forget it. because we were going to be revisiting that information again and again all the way through the different years of the programme. And so, as also that's been mentioned by Vanessa, we have never had cadaveric material at the Peninsula Medical School. When it was founded in 2002, it was decided that everything about the programme should be evidence-based, and there wasn't a clear evidence base to show that you could only learn anatomy through cadaveric dissection. And I think everyone here is open to that idea. And there was a wonderful meta-analysis that was released a couple of years ago that showed that regardless of whether you learn anatomy through dissection, prosection, or without cadavers, you can still learn the same amount of anatomy, which is proving what we all knew anyway. So all of our anatomy curriculum is delivered through a flipped classroom approach. And so for those of you that have not used a flipped classroom or haven't heard of it before, it means that we provide very structured prep to do in advance of the sessions. And that covers the less exciting parts of anatomy, the naming of bones and landmarks and figuring out where things are in relation to each other. We include quizzes in that. We, in non-COVID times, we did anatomized dissections, and the students would be able to come in to do prep using all of the anatomy models that we had on campus as well, so that then they're fully prepared and they have a really good foundation of understanding for the active learning sessions. So our contact sessions with our students were based around different stations of activities. So there would be surface anatomy, medical imaging, dissection, lots of clinical scenarios, an assortment of those that are most appropriate to that particular topic. And so students could actively apply the learning from their prep in these different approaches and these different ways. And so in a nutshell, that's what we do. We do a lot of small group teaching. So we do repeat everything multiple times, which is great for the brain cells, if not a little bit tiring. Our cohort sizes for medicine are about 206 students at the moment. So we do have to get through quite a few people, but we have quite a few new anatomists with us at the moment, so which is really lovely. So it's nice to have a bigger team. So we recently expanded our cohort size, and so we expanded our facilities. Really beautiful and shiny, but now sadly very empty and gathering dust. So we're really very excited about being able to get back into the teaching rooms. So we have dedicated areas for surface anatomy teaching. We have very flexible working spaces with our 84-inch touchscreen TVs that are all connected via the Apple TV, and also kind of individually can work in isolation. And you can see a couple of our anatomage areas. So here's the classic anatomage table, and then here are two of our clinical anatomage tables, and our third one should be arriving imminently, which is very exciting. It's like Christmas. And beautiful teaching facilities, really excited about them, and now we can't use them because obviously COVID-19 had other ideas, and it was quite jarring, I'm sure, for all of us to be given very little notice to then have to move all of our teaching online that we've spent so many years perfecting as a face-to-face delivery. But necessity is the mother of invention, as Plato said. And so we took it as an opportunity to rethink the reasons behind delivering the teaching in certain ways. And we found a new appreciation for what the future of teaching can actually look like as a blended approach of virtual learning and combined with face-to-face as soon as we were allowed back in the departments. So all of our decision-making was based on student feedback as well, because we wanted to understand what the student experience was. And so that was a really important aspect. The students found a lot of positives from the remote teaching. They loved the flexibility of, because we had a combination of asynchronous and synchronous activities. They had that flexibility to learn at their own pace, to watch a video, pause it, do a bit of reading around it, carry on watching it. They were also really excited about the lots of different platforms that we used. So we introduced them to lots of different learning platforms that they've then used in various other aspects of their learning, like in EBL groups. They were very excited about the lack of travel and the fact that they didn't have to pay for that. So that was a big improvement. Negatives were poor internet connection and a lack of devices for all of the individuals. We are surrounded within the Southwest by some very rural areas, so that does affect the internet connection, but quite a lot of those areas are less wealthy, more deprived, and so some families will have maybe one device across the entire family that they would have to share. So that was very challenging to try and figure out how we can support those students and ensure that they still got a good quality of education. The home life, as we've all experienced, can be quite distracting when a very kind person comes in and brings you a cup of tea or asks you what you want for lunch. It's very nice of them, but perhaps a little bit distracting from your lecture. And we have a whole cohort of students who haven't actually met many of their peers. And so we felt that there was a responsibility to not just deliver the anatomy teaching, but also find ways to introduce them to each other as well, and so they can build a bigger community. From our perspective as anatomists, pros and cons again, we enjoyed the less travel, more time in our day. We've really enjoyed learning about these new teaching approaches that I'm going to be talking about today, and the fact that our universities have invested a lot more in online delivery platforms, so that's opened up a lot more opportunities to us. We have, however, been concerned about how to understand and monitor student engagement and how to identify those struggling students. Because if you see just a sea of black squares in a Zoom meeting, you don't necessarily know if that student is engaging, and if they're not engaging, why is that the case? So we've been working hard to address those. And of course, the main reason for this talk is more about how we delivered that understanding, that really complex three-dimensional spatial awareness understanding. And anatomage has been really helpful with that. So what I want to talk about now is how the anatomage system can help us move towards a blended learning teaching approach in future. So I'm now just going to flip to the table on the cloud. So we've all started, I think, with a live in-lecture dissection. So we've got access to the table on the cloud, and we've brought up our favorite cadaver, or the one that's most relevant to that, and we've been able to kind of open up the different presets as we would always do. And so if I was wanting to give a lecture on the vasculature of the gut, I could, very easily select the vasculature that I was interested in, and very clearly explain to the students exactly what it is that I was wanting them to be able to understand. So just by adding in different structures, and it slows down the pace. Instead of having just a diagram with lots of labels, slows down the pace, allows the students to take in that understanding. And that's really nice. And we've also got the capacity to switch between windows. So if I suddenly wanted to talk about the brain, when I was doing my gut lecture, I could, or I could compare the MSK in one cadaver versus another. So it allows that flexibility, which is really nice. I'm not going to show you all of the buttons. We can talk about those later if you'd like. But the fact that we have all of that functionality, that we can switch between the different views, we can identify structures and then have them highlighted here. It just adds a certain level of dynamicism to our delivery. It's not just PowerPoints. And, so that's really exciting. And it's been really, really fun to do that. I'm not sure about you, but I found when I'm giving a lecture via Zoom, I get a lot more student interaction than I would have done previously. So a lot more questions come through in the chat. And that's really lovely, because they can put a private chat message, they can ask you a question, they don't feel embarrassed asking that question in front of other people. And that's fantastic. I don't think that that's enough to encourage student engagement throughout the entire duration of your lecture, though. Showing them the beautiful anatomy on the anatomized table is superb, but students need a little bit more to bring them in and get them from a passive learning environment, state of mind, to an active learning state of mind. And so we've, as with many other people, have introduced additional platforms to encourage engagement. And the student feedback has been that when we add in quiz platforms, we throw in a few questions relating to what we've just talked about, or asking them to activate their prior knowledge from the prep, it really gets them more motivated. The thing that they get quite stressed about is if we try and use too much technology in one session, because the cognitive overload is so much, it's so distracting that they're not focusing on the content, they're focusing on the platforms. So I would suggest using just one platform per teaching session. I think we've all had a Kahoot or two in our time with family quizzes and all of this sort of thing. Here I've created a GIF from the anatomized table. And so you can add in the questions and kind of add that as a way of checking whether the students are engaged. The students can test their own understanding, figure out if they've understood what the situation is. And you can see whether there's some major misunderstanding before moving on. And that's really very, very useful. Now, students love the competition nature, the competitive nature of this. There is a love-hate relationship with the music. Some students absolutely love the music and are like dancing away, and other students absolutely hate it and find it very anxiety-inducing. So it's whatever you prefer. The other platform we've used is Mentimeter, which is really fun. As you can see, I've taken a screen grab from the table on the cloud, and I've asked the students to put in a little pin where they think the structure is. And so you can see live that those pins accumulating, hopefully in the correct place, but sometimes in a place which gives you a really good opportunity to provide a learning point for them. So how to tell the left from their right, and how to tell the superior trunk from the middle trunk, or whatever. So using the platforms to test the knowledge in the way you think it's most relevant and most clinically oriented can be quite useful. Students find that Menti is slightly more relaxed than Kahoot, but it's still competitive because there's a leaderboard at the end. So they get very excited about that. So we can do the live in-lecture dissections. We can create these beautiful dissections using the anatomized table. We can show them really beautifully live online. We can also create asynchronous material from them. And we've done this previously as well, where we've done small videos and embedded them into quizzes in our virtual learning environment. We use Moodle. And so there's a short video, and then there'll be a whole bunch of questions afterwards relating to that topic. So students can actively kind of engage in those bite-sized bits of information about a topic and test their understanding afterwards. And then we also get an understanding of how well the students are doing from the data from that. And so those are all very nice, but they're kind of quite detached. The students are quite detached from the dissection and the anatomy themselves. So why not provide student-led dissections? So we have created dissection guides that are either available through PowerPoints on the iPads that we have in the Life Science Resource Centre, or we've made Moodle quizzes where it gives like open up this preset on the anatomized table and identify the structures that we've indicated here. Where does this sit in relation to this? And so if students are working in small groups together, they can get access to the table on the cloud. One of them can be leading the dissection, as in any dissection room. One person can be reading the instructions and the questions out loud, and the other people can be answering the questions, and we can change roles around. So that brings the students much more involved in the process. And that doesn't have to be facilitated. It can have a facilitator that floats between rooms and asks people how they're getting on and just checks in on people, but you don't necessarily need to be in there. If you've got some way of recording how well they've done with the questions and the answers, because then you can follow up with students that are struggling as a result of that. So students can either have access to Table on the Cloud, or recently I've discovered that you can get remote access to our own anatomized tables, which is a really exciting prospect and something that we're really keen to get behind. Because we have our rural environment around us, and we also have students that are scattered all over the Southwest, they won't have physical access to a physical anatomized table necessarily. So if we created a robust booking system and students could basically, from the comfort of their own home, be accessing the anatomy that they need to revise prior to going on clinic one day or something like that. But they could also do that in a group. They could create a Zoom meeting and share their screen and show the dissections and have a chat about it. So it doesn't have to be a solo activity. It can be quite a nice group activity. And it's a way to create an anatomy community. We used to have that from when students would meet together in teaching rooms. You know, you'd see lots of students clustered together. They'd be drawing on each other. They would be interacting like that. Now, most of our students' interactions are this way. And we've found that quite a lot of our teaching has done it really well online. And actually, some of the sessions have actually been improved by moving online. There was a lot more flexibility. We had more functionality. And so I think as a blended learning future, we've got a lot of positives to take from this. The students love to learn from each other, figure out what they know, what they don't know, and understand kind of how their knowledge sits with their peers. But what they do need is a kind of a platform, a scaffold to support that interactivity, that community creation. So having something like an anatomized booking system where they can book as groups, and creating resources like these kind of interactive whiteboards. I'm not sure if anyone's been using these as part of their teaching, but Miro and Whiteboard Fox, they are limitless whiteboards. So you can zoom out, zoom out, zoom out for eternity. And so you can have multiple activities for multiple groups. So you can divide your cohort into very small groups, so maybe 3 or 4 students in a breakout room. You can send them this URL to this web page. They navigate to the area for their group number, and then they just crack on. They just work away as a group based on, building on their knowledge from their prep. And you as a facilitator can be looking in and looking around and seeing who's done the most drawings, how engaged they are they correct? You don't have to be in the breakout room with them, but you can then see if you've noticed a mistake that they've made, or you want to pop in and say, well done, you're doing really well. You can just nip in and have a chat with them and then nip back out again. So it allows that flexibility, which is really quite exciting. And the students have really enjoyed this. If it's a subject that they feel comfortable with, it's not too complex, and it builds on the prep, they're really happy to just get going on their own and work together. Sometimes having a facilitator in the room can be a little bit daunting. They kind of feel a little bit embarrassed about saying when they don't know something. But they love having a facilitator in the room if it's a bit more complex. We were talking, we're doing spinal tracts the other day. That's definitely not a unfacilitated session. Okay, so we all know that assessment drives learning. It's not just summative assessment that drives learning, it's also formative assessment. And the anatomage is a fantastic way of giving students formative assessment opportunities to kind of figure out how they're getting on. So you could create a really nice spotter, and you could then even create something that you leave as a preset. And so, for example, if I scroll back, I can reveal the beautiful basal ganglia, all nicely labeled. and the students can look at it from different orientations, see how it all relates to each other, and then kind of get a better feeling of what it would look like in different views. And if that wasn't enough, Anatomage have also got their great quizzes as well. So if I just pop this brain over to one side, you can click the quiz button, you can choose what quiz type. I personally am a big fan of the flashcards, and or you could create one yourself and have that uploaded, and the students have to go and take that particular quiz before they come to a teaching session. So I need to find the corpus callosum. So I'm just going to get a nice sagittal view, and then I'm just going to click on it here. Just check I've got it right. Oh, let's have a look, because then it will highlight it. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that is just gorgeous, isn't it? So you can really beautifully see the corpus callosum, and I got it right, which is reassuring. Septum pellucidum, we've not got enough time to do that. So I'm just going to say here, let's pretend that this is the septum pellucidum. I've got it wrong. Who knew that that wasn't the septum pellucidum? But now I can scroll back, and in green, it shows you really nicely exactly where it is. So it gives live feedback, and there are a whole bunch of other different formats that you can do. And when they've finished, you can basically get some detailed feedback. So I know where the corpus callosum is, which is great. No, I got the septum pellucidum wrong, so I obviously need to go and do a bit of homework on that. And so we can export the results, and the students can get that as formative feedback as well. So I think that we've come a long way in the last year. We've learned a lot from this experience that was forced upon us, but hopefully the face of education will be very, very different and better as a result of all of the learning that we've done over the last year. So I'm going to leave it there. And so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And if you've also got any comments or best practice that you'd like to share with us, that would be great too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can share my screen. So thank you very much, Siobhan, for your presentation, for the example that you presented us. I'm going to activate the microphone for everyone. The one that want to make a question, to ask something or anything to Siobhan, please write in the chat, and I will provide you the possibility. So let me unmute everyone.
We've got a question in the chat from Maurice. How long does it take to prepare a session that will traditionally cover a 1-hour lecture? It's a very good question, actually. It depends on how you're structuring it. If you were doing, say, for example, instead of having a PowerPoint slides, you're going to give a dissection, but you're wanting to include some quiz questions, the actual preparation isn't that onerous. You basically just need to create a workflow. So what I have is, as you can see, I've got several screens. So I've got I'm greedy. I have 3 screens. So you could have on one screen, just behind the camera or to one side, the running order of the different structures that you want to introduce, and maybe the key points, the key take-home messages that you want to introduce as a result of that. So you effectively just create a flow of information. And then the quiz questions, they don't take very long at all, actually. I find playing around and getting a fancy picture is the bit that takes the longest. But if you're going to be doing that anyway as part of your practice and practice lectures, then you've kind of got that. You just take some screen grabs or make a GIF, sorry, or whatever. So actually, it doesn't need to take that long. but then it's kind of how long is a piece of string. It can take as long as you would like it to, and it can also take as short as you'd like it to.
Right. So there is another question from Gil Jones. Do you want to interact with us, or do you prefer that she won't reply based on what you wrote in the chat?
I'm happy to read it.
Sure.
Hi, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this webinar. It's so useful. I just wanted to ask about the quiz option. So I've had a bit of a play with this function, and I need to do more work on it. But I just wondered, you seem to be able to get questions just relating to the brain, you know, just because that was the section you were working on. But when I played with the quiz function before, it's been kind of the whole body. And I just wondered, did you have specific ways that you refine that, or have you created your own quiz? We're just looking for shortcuts, really, because we don't have much manpower in our department.
No, absolutely. So I cheated, and I basically just had a high-res regional of the brain. So it would only ask for neurological structures. So, but you can, as I think, is it Carlo that you're illustrating? You can use this customize button. Carlo, would you like to explain?
Yeah, so when you want to use the quiz mode, you can select, first of all, the type of quiz mode as Siobhan showed you. So you can select through this, or you can select the game mode. After that, you can personalize, you can customize the questions. So if you press on customize, then you can have this menu that is very similar to the able menu that you can have from this icon. And here, if you press plus, you can add the questions that you want. I mean, you are adding the structure or the system or the category, depending on what you want as a number of questions. And if you press on plus, you will have as new questions. So if you press plus, 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 you will see the annotation appear. And then you have to press add to quiz. So I can select as number 2. And we will have the question here. Then you can press continue and save, and to have, or going back to have then this question inside your quiz. So you can customize the question that you want in your quiz. There are also other settings that you can set here. And so there are multiple, let's say, settings that you can adjust based on your needs or your will. And so you can customize in any way your quizzes.
Thank you. And sorry, you mentioned that you used a high-res function. Was that just something? Was that a shortcut that you use, or something that you? How do you do that?
If you go to Carlo, would you be able to show on your screen the high-res regional?
So my advice is, if you want to make a quiz, or you want to show or want to teach something that is involving a system, so the entire system on the body, the best thing is to open a gross anatomy. Instead, if you want to show or make a quiz about a particular region of the body or some structure, some organ, it's better to go in a high resolution regional anatomy section here, and you can select the data sets through this list, because here the resolution is very high, is the highest that we have, and the structure are very well detailed. So here is the best that you can have. It's limited to this region. For example, you have the brain of the female body or on the male one. And you can select on this, and then you will have the same user interface. So you can create, you can do what you can do also with gross anatomy as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jill. There's some great how-to videos as well on the Anatomage YouTube channel that can kind of help with some of those. But the Anatomage team are always so helpful. So you can always ask.
So there is another question, some other questions. So let's try to go in the right order. I think that there is one question regarding the screen. So we are also agreed about the screens. Is this a new norm?
I think it might be the new normal.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have screen envy. We won't be able to work on anything less than 2 screens.
Yeah. The other question is how to get table on cloud. So if you don't have table on cloud, please write us. I want to move this so you can see the email address that you can write to and ask us to have a table on cloud. We are providing one license, free license to all our customers in this pandemic period for free. So you can use table on cloud and you can take advantages of this. So going back to the, let me see, okay, to the questions.
Yes, there is another question. How do you make a video in Anatomage? There is, okay, Siobhan, if you want, yes, you can reply as you want.
So I'm sometimes a bit lazy, so I just do it in Panopto and can export that. I'm sure there's probably a better way of doing that though.
Okay.
So,
there are also other options. So you can make video directly from the table. If you create a list of presets, you can then take a video, yes, using this icon, the topmost icon when you open the preset icon. And with this dialog, you can create preset by putting you can create videos by putting preset one after the other one. And by pressing on video capture, you can then export the video. Or we also provide to our customer the ice cream software that is a software that allows to record the screen of the table. So if you haven't it, you can write us an email and we can send you a license key to install this software. So this software allows you to directly record what happens on the screen of the table.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
I think
So
there are some other questions.
There's a question from Hannah in the School of Nursing. Yes, I am very happy to offer some help, very happy to run some sessions and share any of my material that we've created and also the results from our research that we've done as well. So I've been in touch with, I think, my head of school has been in touch with your head of school about us supporting that. So yeah, just whenever, drop me an email. It's probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, thank you. I was turned up kind of in pandemic, kind of middle of the pandemic, so we haven't had a chance to get in and look at them or do anything with them at all. But
well,
can I just ask,
yeah.
Do they show pathophysiology and disease processes, or is it just normal anatomy?
Well, each of the cadavers has some pathology associated with them, and so depending on which cadaver you use, you'll be able to see some different processes. So for example, Carl, the cadaver you just saw there, has a brainstem tumor. He's missing an appendix and he's also missing a testis, but he does have additional muscles in his calf, and he has most anatomical variants of his vasculature. His vasculature is fantastic. Oh yes, absolutely. And so Carl is showing you the summary of all of the different things that are were wrong with the individual. So like
you can find this file. This is a one PDF that is for the female Asian body. You can find all these files inside the preset annotation folder on the desktop of your table. And with this PDF file, you can find also the VPF file that are the presets file. So you can then open this preset file inside the table application to have this type of visualization already made by us from Anatomage and explore more in detail and quickly the pathology or the particularities of this of the body that you are teaching or you are exploring.
Thank you. I'll definitely drop you an email, Siobhan. Thank you so much.
Please do.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so I think that there is another question. So the screen display exactly what is on Anatomage table. Okay, so just to clarify the situation, we have the Anatomage table that has two screens are with the HD resolution. Then there is another product that is a clinical table that has only one screen, and so it's smaller. And table on cloud instead is something that you can have access through your web browser. So from which computer you want, there is no problem in doing this. You need, of course, the internet connection. Moreover, there is the possibility, as Siobhan was telling you during the presentation, to connect your table to internet and then control the table by some software like TeamViewer, AnyDesk, so you can have access even if you are not in the same building of the table where the table is. And this is I hope that I reply your question. Let me know if no.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
What's the difference then in functionality between using the table on cloud and using the remote access of the table itself? Yeah.
So if you are using the table on cloud, the opportunity that you have is to have something that is fitting one screen. So it's in some way better to be used on your computer as well, and then share with your student. Instead, if you are using your table that has two screens, is not so perfect to have a visualization that could be really thin and long and wide, but you can set this. So if you want to use your table, you can do. In my opinion, it could be better to use your table because you have the more control on this. You don't have to ask us or if in the future we will not have table on cloud or if there is something else, but you can always use your table. And your table, remember this, your table can stay turned on 24 hours on 24 hours, 7 days on 7 days. There is no problem in doing this. So if you can connect your table to the internet and then you can leave your table on, turn it on, you can have access whenever you want. In doing this, in this particular period, if you have the possibility to connect also your table, you have at the same time two opportunities. So one is table on cloud and one is a table that you have at your university. So you are making double possibilities. If you have a more professor that want to have access, or you want to share the opportunity to have access to your student as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Then there is a question directly for you, Siobhan. Are your students able to access the table via remote control at home? From Anouk.
They're not as yet. It's something that we're wanting to instigate. I wasn't aware until Carlo told me a couple of weeks ago, and I thought that was such a genius idea that I wanted to share it with everyone here. We're looking into it. We already have a booking system for students to use our Anatomage tables in person when we were able to. So we are looking into adapting that to be able to use those tables remotely. And so we're very excited about that. And so that, I think, is going to be a project that we're going to be working on over the summer, just to make sure that that's up and running.
Thank you. There is another question for you, I think, Siobhan. Do you find that students don't want to come to this class as they have the online access?
Thankfully not. We do have, it's really interesting actually, because there are some students that are that prefer to learn on their own and, you know, in an isolated little bubble. There are other students that prefer to learn with other people. And the way in which our course is structured, I think it attracts students that are interested in learning in teams and in groups. And so our students are desperate for contact with us, even if it is virtual. So we usually do get very good engagement with the sessions. And because we try and make the sessions as fun and interesting as possible, because anatomy is fantastic and we have so many amazing access to so many amazing resources to show how dynamic and interesting and exciting anatomy is, that it shouldn't be a hard sell. I mean, we should just be able to go, look, this is so exciting, look at this. And they get swept up with the excitement of it as well, because we're all massive geeks for anatomy and enjoy it so much that we just want to infuse our students with that as well. So hopefully they come along because they're interested and they learn more in those sessions as well.
Good. There is another question for you, Siobhan, regarding ebook, if it's in use, I think, at your university, from Lyon.
Yeah, we haven't. We had a look at the beta for the ebooks, and we were helping support with that. But because we already had a lot of resources already created because of the flipped classroom, we basically just carried on using those ones for the duration. So I haven't actually used that facility, but I've seen it recently. It looks lovely.
Then there is another question regarding the physiology of disease and process, or just normal anatomy. So as Siobhan told us, the body that are inside table are mainly with 1 or 2 pathologies. We can say that with the exception of the Caucasian body, so the male, that this one, Carl, we say this is Carl, and this is because he died for a lethal injection, and so he is mainly in a healthy condition, we can say this. Then inside the table, you have the opportunity not only to see or to look at the cadaver data from frozen cadaver, but you can also go inside case library. So inside case library, you can find many pathologies or many physiological situations with DICOM data from CT scans or MRI scan.
That's really useful once the students have understood the anatomy already, because it doesn't give, you can't click on things until it tells you what it is. So it's the next level of understanding. They're fantastic 3-dimensional images, and they have some that compare several different pathologies, and you can see a healthy situation next to 2 pathologies, and they rotate at the same time. And so it's really useful to compare and contrast different pathologies and processes. Yes, so you can see the basal aneurysm, basilar aneurysm.
Yeah.
And so these are really beautiful. And quite a few of them will have some case notes next to them as well. So you get a bit more information about that. So you could potentially build it into a clinical scenario. So a patient presents with ... you know, can you identify this? What do you think is the disease process behind it? You could tie it in with the histology that you can get on the table as well, getting them to think about how the tissue would be affected, whether that, if it was infective, whether that would spread, you know, what direction it would spread, what fascial planes it would spread along, you know, that sort of thing. So it allows a lot more flexibility as well once the students have understood their fundamental anatomy. Isn't this beautiful? It's not just me. It's not just me thinking that this is great.
So you in the table or with the table, you have different possibilities. You have different type of data, and this allows you to use a table with different approach based on your needs. This is the main concept. Good. I think that we can pass to the next question.
I think there's a question here from Jill Jones asking, saying struggling to get students engaged to sign up sessions.
Sorry, I can just speak to that as well, Siobhan. Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, just that they're saying that they want a lecturer there all the time. So we've been sort of, saying go to the preset, identify this list of muscles, think about what it relates to. They keep asking for more, and I'm obviously missing something, and I'm not sure what to offer next, really. So any pearls of wisdom would be amazing. Thanks.
So this is to use the anatomage table, is it?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So when we did the research that we did, it showed that we had to give them a really, really robust handheld induction into the anatomage table, and we've honed that over the years, and I'm very happy to share that with you if you wanted to email me. But also, students will always want more. That's the first thing to take into consideration, and sometimes it's really important to be able to take the stabilizers off and let them play, because if there is a facilitator there, then that sometimes hampers the enthusiasm. They're a bit scared of saying something in front of us in case they get it wrong and they look foolish. So the interactive sort of quiz-based oh goodness, what I've lost the word, functions on your virtual learning environment could be quite a useful thing. So you can give them a QR code by the anatomage table for whichever aspect of anatomy you're wanting them to do. It'll take them to the quiz on the virtual learning environment, and you can have instructions of what they need to do with little pictures of the icons that they have to press, and they can ignore those if they know what they're doing, but they can also refer to them if they don't. And then you can have a few questions there just to prompt them with that as well. And so there's lots of functionality. Anatomage also has some user guides on the table as well. So it's kind of like a workbook that the students can work through, and it gives all of that information as well. And it's kind of different systems, and they're editable as well, I think, so that you can adjust them. You can take the basic format and adjust them as well. So those might be a really good place to start off with. But so long as the students have had a really sort of robust induction, you can then explain to them why there isn't a lecturer there, that there's an educational reason, and also, a logistical reason that can't happen. But, kind of give them the support through these resources. That can be very useful. Does that help?
That's brilliant, and it's just really reassuring as well, actually, because I really thought they would just run with it, and I was a bit taken aback when they just weren't happy to do that. And we did lots of induction, but I don't know if it was quite staged in the right way. So like you said, I think we need to refine it, and actually I would love to be a fly on the wall, or spend a little bit of time hearing a bit more about how you run that. That'd be amazing. I'll send you an email if that's okay.
Yeah, drop me an email. Thank you. We can have a Zoom chat.
Thanks very much.
I think that you can also take advantage from these files that you can find again on desktop in table activities folder, and here you have many folders. You can select I don't know, muscles, and here you have the PDF already prepared by us, but also the editable files. That is something that you can open with the open file, and you can modify the files. And in the file, there are some guide steps for the students, so they can start to work with table, take their time and to understand how to do something, but at the same time, they have to reply to some question. So they have to do some work. And this, I think, that can be a good step for the beginners also.
Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome.
I think the next questions should be, is there a functionality to upload your own images? Yes, you can. The table is DICOM compatible through this icon, the open file icon from the main menu. You can open your CT or MRI scan in DICOM file format. You can just press on open, and then you can upload these scans using, for example, a USB stick. And then you can visualize your own scans in the table, having the same icons, the same tools at your disposal as happens in the case library. So you can interact also with your scan by using the icons that you can normally use with the case library.
Yeah, just to open only one case from case library, we can select, I don't know, another, let me change the region of the body. So we can open the heart, for example. This is a CT scan. You will have this immediately in 3D. So table will be able to rebuild also your DICOM file if you are going to open your DICOM in 3D immediately, and then you can visualize and investigate the data with also the 2D. And here there is, as well as with cadaver data, a line that is a rectangle in orange that is indicating us which is this level. Then you can switch from axial view to sagittal one or to frontal coronal one. And then you can explore more and more the only 3D visualization, applying different filters from here. And there are many filters, and there are also the ultra quality filters that are something that we developed some years ago that are really, really hard in terms of what they can reach. So let me show you this type of filter that is the sharp one. The renderization of the data is let me obtain a photorealistic visualization. Then I can also work to focalize my attention to only the heart. So I can use, for example, this scalpel, the green one, to remove all the parts that are not involving strictly the heart or closer the heart. And in this way, I can see also the coronaries of the heart, or I can investigate more in details the main parts of the heart. Or if I want, I can then cut with a clipping plane and explore in this way. Then I can change my filter to visualize with transparent visualization to see, for example, the aortic valve. Right, so next question.
How many students you have attending a single lessons? Siobhan?
So it depends. We do a mixture of, we do very few large group sessions, we do very few lectures. So we usually divide our cohort into either 6 or 9. So we may do things 6 or 9 times. But what we tend to do is we would then subdivide those students into different stations. And we would have different activities happening in different parts of the teaching facilities. So there may be a station that's looking at surface anatomy, a station that's doing a virtual dissection, a station that's doing clinically oriented scenarios. And there would be staff facilitating those stations, but students would be expected to work through the material that's provided. And we have 160 iPads within our facilities. So students, each station would have an iPad with the instructions, they swipe through, it has the questions and answers, it has the instructions for the anatomized dissections, exactly what they're supposed to, what is expected of them. And we're there just to help nudge them in the right direction, give encouragement, ask them some awkward questions, to help probe their understanding, that sort of thing, rather than just talking at them. I don't do very much of what I'm doing now because we find that anatomy is something I think is that you can understand if you kind of go in with the basics and the names and everything like that. That's really helpful, but it's really more interesting to explore what it does and how it does it and how it all interacts. And that is more experiential than just being told that that's what it is. So we want to be able to offer that sort of a bit of a background information, the foundations that they need, and then give them the activities that will help tease out all of the more detailed nuances of that in a kind of a supported way, but they have to do the hard work.
I want to thank again Siobhan for the great presentation, for her time, and I want to thank also all the attendees to have taken part in this webinar. We are proud that we were 80 or more people. So we are proud. We are very proud about the numbers. This is the first key opinion leader webinar of our Anatomage Academy, and we hope to see you also in the next webinars and in the next webinar of our key opinion leaders. So I think that all of you already received the calendar for the second trimester webinar that are all by us of Anatomage. And soon we will send you also the date for the next key opinion leader webinar.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks everyone for all your comments as well and your questions. It's really exciting to see what other people are doing as well. So I'm looking forward to the next webinars.
Feel free to write us if you have any question in using to use or to better use the table, or if you want to have contacts with other customer maybe around your area, or to have just some contact to share ideas. Feel free and please write us about this. We are here also to help you in doing this. Right. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
And see you soon. Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Siobhan. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.